Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Let's Chat Reality. I'm Michael,
And I'm Molly.
and today we are talking about another week of BB27 with a very special guest. He is a writer at Parade Magazine and the host of the Reality Flash podcast on the RIJP network. He was kind enough to take a break from fishing for likes and sit down with us to discuss a show that we really like. It's the incredible Mike Bloom. Mike, how are you?
I am so happy to be here, to be a part of this triple threat, the true triple threat, because the
True.
other one ain't looking so good as of late.
No, it is not. But Mike, we like to start off all of our podcasts with getting your reality TV origin story. So, if you remember, if there's a specific show, a specific episode that of reality TV that really got you invested in this world?
Yes, I've talked about this, a fair number of times, but it's weird because obviously, in getting to do what I get to do, I talk with so many people that have gone to reality TV, a bit later in the game. So it feels odd for me to say that I got into it in the summer of 2000. That feels like we are a dying breed, us OGs, and I say OGs in loose quotations because obviously there was the Real World before that and other shows. Survivor was not necessarily like the first reality show, but it was the reality show during that time. So I remembered I'd heard rumblings through, the word of mouth that existed back in those days, pre-social media, about this brand new show where it's real people, not actors. I think Howard Stern, my dad was a big Stern listener, and so he talked about it a lot. He was obsessed in the beginning. So the first one I came in was, I think, Survivor Season 1, Episode 6, which, spoiler alert, spells the end of the one, the only Joel Klug, and sets up the fall of the Pagongs to happen over the course of the rest of Survivor Borneo. And really, the rest was history after that. And I think, I and the fandom got very lucky that what I've termed as the CBS Big Three, Survivor, Big Brother, The Amazing Race, all premiered within like a 2-year time frame. You have Survivor in the summer of 2000, you have Big Brother premiering at the same time, just about, and then you have Amazing Race starting in September of 2001. And I've been very fortunate to, be stuck to my couch watching all these things and getting to cover it the way I do for the past nearly 10 years or so.
Wow, that's crazy. It is so wild to think about how closely all of those shows premiered. And then within just like a year or two later, you get The Bachelor that's still
Mm-hmm.
very much active. You get all these shows that had a very long shelf life, if not are still on today, that all started in a very short span of time.
Yeah, it's weird because yes, those shows have become tried and true, pillars of television. Survivor is celebrating its 50th season, Big Brother celebrating its 27th season. You scripted shows would wish they went for 27 seasons. But at the same time, in the midst of all that are innumerable reality shows that ran for one season and just completely flamed out. Because that was the big thing at the time was, okay, reality TV is where it's at. I don't care how crappy the concept is. So yes, while there are a lot of success stories that have carried through 25 plus years, there are more failures than successes, I would say. Not failures in terms
Yeah.
of entertainment, because my God, looking back at some of those choices that were made in the 2000s, they
Yeah.
are they are very fun in retrospect.
For sure. Well, here we are 25 years later, talking about season 27 of Big Brother. Mike, what are your just kind of overall thoughts on this season as we are 5 weeks in?
I'm enjoying it. I think that, it's always tough from my perspective because just as someone who covers reality TV so in depth and has the great pleasure of getting to talk with these contestants every week, I don't necessarily throw my favor behind a contestant because I know inevitably I will have to approach it objectively. That being said, I still do find this season, I feel like even from a fan base perspective, nobody's really glomming onto anybody,
Hmm.
But it's not a boring season at the same time. It's very odd in that regard. It's almost like there's been a lot of comparisons made, but it's like a Gabon or especially a Survivor 46 of
Yeah.
Big Brother, where I could very much understand if you were watching these seasons for next level strategy and all time players, you are not going to get that. Even in the shit show that was 26, you had someone like Chelsea who became one of the best modern winners through what she was able to dominate towards the end of the game. We're not going to get that from anybody this
Yeah.
season. But as someone who is not terribly into strategy being the end all be all and is just here for mess and unpredictable chaos. I've been having fun with it. Again, it's still lacking for me the personal association with some of these characters. But if we're just looking at like listing out the events of person A does this, person B does this, it's almost like a brand steal come to life. It's just the most wildest illogical things are happening within those four walls.
I've been thinking of it weirdly as like, and don't get me wrong, there are a lot of differences here, but I've been comparing it to like a modern day Big Brother 9 almost in a way.
Yeah, I've heard a bit about that as well. Yeah,
Yeah,
in terms of like, I mean, that was a much more toxic messiness,
sure.
specifically with comments that were being made. But yeah, I do think the idea of like the one-eyed man sort of being the king of the kingdom of the blind here, and the fact that like it is a bit unpredictable. I mean, who knows? Big Brother 9 certainly had its bad stretch, especially when it hit the jury, where it was just one alliance picking off the other. We will see what that happens whenever the jury starts, but I could definitely see those comparisons.
Yeah. Molly, I feel like, we've been talking about it week to week, but I feel like it's been a while since we've just kind of gotten your overall thoughts. So what are you thinking so far?
Yeah, I feel like, as Mike said, it is just so unpredictable with this cast, and I haven't really felt, besides for Ava, like I feel like I don't have like a favorite person or like alliance or anyone that I'm like, oh, like I need them to win each week and continue on. Like there hasn't really been that, but I do just love Ava, and her personality is just great, and I love that she's her true self. So I don't know, the gameplay of it all, it hasn't been great though. So that's the one disappointing part. But so far, I mean, I've been enjoying it to say the least. So it's like it's still good. I'm still watching it, obviously.
Yes, absolutely. Well, let's get into the specifics then of this past week, which feels like a month. As I look at my notes here, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that was only a week ago. But we pick up from Wednesday night's episode where we left off last week with Mickey overtaking Riley's HOH. And look, we've seen a lot of various forms of this HOH takeover power in the past. We've seen the coup d'etat, we've seen the diamond power veto, the hacker, the deep fake, all these different forms. Mike, what did you think of this version of this twist? Did you prefer it happening like in the very beginning of the week, like we saw here, or like the coup d'état where it happens right before the vote?
It really is putting lipstick on a pig. I really don't like these twists just
Yeah.
because it does feel pretty unfair, especially because look, Riley is not necessarily the biggest fan favorite, but like he definitely should not have been allowed to have been nominated, in my opinion. Like, yes,
Oh
I
yeah.
know that Mickey's technically the HOH, but like even when Jeff overthrew Shima, he couldn't put Shima up on the block. At least there's a little bit of courtesy that is done there. And who knows, maybe if Mickey was not forced to put Riley up on the block, then like maybe things go a little bit differently here. But I just never really enjoy it as a twist because yes, while it does exist for this form of unpredictability, it does lead to a lot of unfairness on the part of the players. And like all it takes is one fan favorite player to win HOH and one disliked player to do it before everyone decries it. So that said, if they had to do a version of this twist, this is probably the most ideal version of it in that there was a way in which Riley could still remain HOH if he was able to put two and two together. But as we discovered on Big Brother Unlocked this past week, he's not great at math. And so somehow they ended up with the one person in the house, maybe besides Keanu, to not know that Mickey had the power to make the incorrect guess.
Yeah, that was crazy. But I do agree that at least it felt like she earned it. Like she had to keep it enough of a secret that there was a chance that she could, not be found out. And so I do like that versus, when it happened in BB11 and of course, everything that happened with Shima, it just felt so unfair. And so this at least like despite the fact that of course, it just happened to work out well in terms of the fan favorite at the time, winning it and the potentially fan least favorite losing it. I do think that even without that, it would at least feel like there was some sort of effort made. But then we get to Mickey having a conversation with Riley. Immediately after this, it turns into an argument, of course, with Riley cursing at her, telling her that she lied to him. They could have worked something out, which feels like a bit of revisionist history, convenient when there's no way to dispute it. But she says that she had heard that he was going to nominate her or her ally, so she couldn't trust him. Molly, do you feel like Riley's anger here was warranted? I mean, like this obviously this conversation happened immediately afterwards, but he did have a strong reaction. So do you kind of understand that bit given the circumstances, or was it a little overblown?
I mean, gave us good TV. But I do think
Sure.
it was a bit overreaction there. I feel like overall, like there are going to be twists in the game. Like obviously, you'll have a feelings towards that, but you don't have to just like blow up at Mickey for like she got this power, she wants to use it. Like it's a game at the end of the day. So I did think it was an overreaction.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
my
I think specifically like her saying to your point, Molly, it's a game, and he responds with, "Not to me, it's personal." I think
Yeah.
he had a right to be angry to a certain extent. Again, Michael, you mentioned Shima, it being a key example of like maybe some well placed anger there, even though in that case it was actually not at Jeff, but more so at production. But
gotta
I
have a
think the
little
second,
talk. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But I think the second that Riley's like, no, 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 you did this personally to me, then it kind of oversteps like, okay, dude, you're not necessarily seeing the big picture of it, which is like, she heard correctly that you were going to put her up. And his argument back is like, you don't know that is not the best leg to stand on. Like, he's not even explicitly denying any of the rumors about that.
Yeah. Do you think though that Mike that she should have waited to let him cool off before having this conversation, that it potentially could have been more productive at a different period of time?
I mean, I think there was a certain extent where she wanted to kind of like cauterize the wound,
Yeah.
stymie any sort of like everyone goes off in their separate directions and he stews and whispers about it. Because there's also this idea that like he might cool down, but also he might get even more riled up. And especially if people are pumping him up, being like, oh my God, look at what she did to you. Then he comes at her even hotter. So it was definitely a calculated risk. I don't know, hindsight being 2020, obviously it's going to very much cool between there are quite literally cool by the end of this week together. But I don't know if that's a result of the way that she talked to him and the timing of it, or if it was always going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, probably to a certain extent, even if it, we take out the cursing, take out the yelling, like I think it would have ended up with the same result pretty much, even if she had waited a little bit of time. Then we get to Mickey deciding on her nominations. She has four nominees that she is considering between Keanu, Kelly, Riley, and Catherine. She ends up nominating Kelly, Keanu, and Riley. Molly, do you think that she should have saved Keanu for a backdoor option, though, potentially given his history of already winning vetoes in the past, that, you kind of hope that he doesn't get picked and then only has one chance to save himself with the blockbuster versus two?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking that going into that nomination ceremony, I was like, well, why is she not just saving Keanu here because of his streak at winning the vetoes? But I guess the back door, I mean, hasn't really been even a thought this season, it seems like, of using that. But overall, obviously, like Keanu is a big competitor, so there's always that risk, even the BB blockbuster, that he would take himself down. So at this time, I feel like, I mean, I would have wanted him to not be nominated here and then be a potential nominee then with the veto if it was used. But I feel like at this time, like now looking back on this, I'm like, well, lots has changed now. But looking back, I'm like, well, I guess it could have happened.
I don't know though, because like yes, you could say on the one hand, oh my God, look what he's done so far. But what did he do so far? He found a thing in the dark that let
That's true.
Casey win the veto. Like,
Yeah,
remember, he went out halfway through that competition. Casey won the veto for him.
right.
He did win on his own last time. He'll win on his own this time. But I don't think it's such a body of work where you're like, oh my God, it's the comp beast Keanu. So far, he found a thing in the dark and he won a competition that he might have been good for considering how physical it was. So, like, I don't think it was like a huge slam dunk decision. Definitely, I think moving forward, it would have been a good idea to backdoor
Yeah.
him, especially if he's your target specifically.
Yeah.
But I don't know. there's a lot more I take Mickey at fault with, because this is
Yes.
the least of our worries here.
That's true.
Yes, and we will certainly get to that in a very short time here. But then we get to the veto. Mickey, Kelly, Keanu, Riley, Rachel, and Morgan all play here. Competition is bracket style face offs with two house guests racing to only step on tiles that turn green and avoid the ones that turn red. If you step on a red tile, you have to start back at the beginning and remember the correct pattern. So whoever wins goes on to the next round, and so on and so forth until only one remains. So Keanu and Rachel end up making it to the final round here, and Keanu wins his technically third veto. Mike, the crowd went totally silent here. This was a
I
moment.
love this so much. We got this a couple of years ago, right when Cameron won that HOH, and
Yeah.
nobody was like, I don't know. I of course be careful what you wish for, because we don't want to necessarily get, toxicity on the levels of a Big Brother 15, or as we mentioned, Big Brother 9. But I also like that we don't need to necessarily do the niceties. I still don't understand why everyone has to hug each other after every single ceremony or every single thing that is done, even the people that are not involved in it. It's just an excuse for everyone to hug each other. So strange. So I like this here when like everyone was just very open about the fact that, like, well, shit, he's the house target and he did not win. I guess the better question is, and a little bit more information has been discovered as to like how much this confrontation was edited or not. Do we feel like Ava was matching Keanu's energy here? Because I've certainly seen some discourse about like, oh, she very much came at him overblown.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like with obviously the speak that we've heard of like the editing and that side of it, I don't know if it seems like there was like a pause where she was supposed to wait for the cue or whatever, and then just him coming at her, then just really set her off of being like, well, I didn't do anything wrong here. Like, why are you coming at me now? And so I feel like with that, like, I don't know. I feel like it wasn't totally matched there. I feel like Ava still was like she felt like she was getting targeted herself.
Yeah, I think that I feel like she was just waiting to hear something like in her ear, and she wasn't going to say something before they told her, okay, Keanu
Mm-hmm.
won. Like, and I guess maybe Keanu just thought like that she had already gotten the cue and she was purposely waiting to say something because she was unhappy about the result, or I don't know, or that just everybody, because everyone was quiet, it just like it felt awkward. And I don't blame Keanu for that. I think that he was in his rights to feel a certain type of way about nobody cheering for him. I get Ava, I guess, feeling like, well, was, going to congratulate you. I was just about to do that, and you jumped the gun. But I do think that she probably a little bit overreacted.
I mean, I think that, as you mentioned, it was just sort of this unfortunate confluence of timings where she was maybe waiting for something. He thought that she was being rude to him. It's also rooted a bit in, like, they talk about this a bit in their reconciliation afterwards, like, a little bit of projection, which I will say I love Ava, but, like, I think even she would admit that she is used to being someone who is underestimated for, her size, her kookiness, etc. And so I think in that moment, she kind of, like, mapped Keanu onto all these people she's probably experienced in her past that are like, oh yeah, like, you should be subservient to me just
Yeah.
because of the way you come across. And so I think this was, she just kind of had it and snapped him at that point, much like she probably wants to snap at all those people in her regular life. It's a little similar to like what we experienced in Survivor 47, where Teeny was very upfront about being like, yeah, Sam, the reason why I don't like you is because you remind me of all these
Yeah.
people that I have in my life that I have this consternation towards. It's, unfortunate because these people can't necessarily change who they are, but, it happens nonetheless that these behaviors can trigger us and remind us of, what we feel about our own inefficiencies.
And look, that's what makes a show like Big Brother so great is when you have all these different types of people, all these different kind of stereotypes of people that you would never meet in your real life, that you would never go up to and befriend, and you have to interact with them and you have to figure out a way to coexist. I think
Hmm.
that's what we talked about the real world. That's what that show was all about back in the 90s. And, I think that when you have and that's why the diversity initiative is so important, and like
Hmm.
all these things that like you need to have this swath of this the American public, and not just have 16 clones of the exact same people that are all have from the same backgrounds. So, Then we go to Mickey finding out a replacement nomination for Keanu. The obvious choice there appears to be Catherine, but Mickey quickly decides that she doesn't want to do that in an effort to keep Riley happy, to keep the showmance in the game as a bigger target than her. Rachel wants Vince out. Mickey considers this, but Morgan, Vince, Zach, really specifically Morgan, but Vince was kind of credited on the show for it, sway her to focus on Jimmy. Now, as I said, kind of the show really paints this as Vince convincing Mickey that she's playing both sides of the house, has made this alliance without her that she doesn't know about. But Mike, can you kind of clear up a little bit what really happened on the feeds as opposed to what happened on the show?
Yeah, thank you for bringing this up because I think certainly in the moment the show wants to, I think, build Vince as like, okay, this is the guy that's at this point the odds-on favorite to win. He's, maybe the most sound strategically in this season. So let's talk about how this was his move. This was not his move. This was something that as soon as the veto was won, there were things that were put out of order. The conversation that Mickey and Morgan had with Keanu, where they sort of cleared the air, Keanu reveals, Jimmy's made a deal with me. That was done first. That was done after the veto was won by Keanu. And that was the straw that stirred the drink. Now, listen, there was a lot of confirmation bias happening where Mickey and Morgan were always very wary of Jimmy after his renominations during his own HOH, where they had felt like they were not listened to, and especially when it came to putting up Amy and Will, two people that they did not want to go home. They were always looking at him sideways, feeling like he didn't have the triple threat's best interests at heart. So for them, they felt that for whatever reason, in this moment, it was the time to strike. And honestly, the people who were whipping Mickey and Morgan into the biggest frenzy were Mickey and Morgan themselves. Once they got this idea in their head, they just consistently had this feedback loop of talking each other into realizing this was a good idea. Vince actually was really not seen on the feeds whatsoever the day that Keanu won the veto and this plan got put into motion. And actually, when he found it out, he talked to Mickey and said at one point, like, do you want to do this? Like, is it a good idea to put up Jimmy? So, yeah, very, very different in reality. But the true answer was that Keanu was sort of the cow that kicks over the lantern to start the Great Chicago Fire here. But it was mostly just Morgan and Mickey really feeding each other this very delusional narrative that Jimmy's coming after us, and so we have to get him before he gets us.
It's so crazy to me that they can paint Vince as somebody who was pushing and causing something to happen when he doesn't push for anything. That's his whole thing, is that he just like, well, maybe you should do that. Like, but I don't know. I don't know if you really want to. And to paint him as somebody who was like, that made this whole thing happen is just kind of so crazy to me. But I guess they need a mastermind and they don't have one this season. They don't have a Derek. They don't have
Yeah, they had a mastermind and he disappeared in week 2. They haven't seen him since.
Yeah, he just broke in and hasn't been seen ever since. But yeah, it's crazy to me that on a show where we can have proof that this is not how it happened, that they still find a way to do it. But that's Big Brother for you. Love it or leave
Exactly.
it.
Yeah, we've been like pretty good about edits remaining fairly faithful so far, but this was hugely the exception to the
Yeah.
rule of just, I don't know, I like can't remember for the life of me a time when they told strategic events out of order in the way that they did, being like, well, Keanu was the one to really put him over the top, when really he was the one that got the entire thing going.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a time that as soon as we get off of here, I'm like, oh yeah, duh. That I can't remember it off the top of my head either. But yeah, I mean, Molly, just what are your thoughts on this decision to target to Jimmy?
I was so mad. I was just like, this is so stupid. There's no. They were just, as you were saying, Mike, like just going in spirals, convincing themselves like he's a big threat. He's gonna get them. But on the other side, they weren't even talking to him and like asking him like, "Would you save us?" or like all that kind of stuff. Like they didn't even have that confirmation from him that he was trying to go after them or anything like that. So they were just hearing from other people or themselves, especially, that they couldn't trust Jimmy, and I just felt bad for Jimmy especially, because I was like, no, like this isn't how he should leave. Is when someone he thought was his ally is going to put him
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me how you can just like when you have nothing to do in the Big Brother house, you just spiral. You just are in your head that any little thing, it's confirmation bias. You just like convince yourself, oh yeah, this Jimmy's responsible for this. And I feel like we saw that so much more before the blockbuster when someone would go on the block and you would just blame them for everything and they would be the devil. And like because there was you knew that they were going home. And now I feel like in 26 at least we saw kind of less of that, I think, and we thought it was in large part because of the fact that they had a chance to stay, so you weren't going to just like completely isolate somebody and exile them because there's a chance very well that without a vote and with no doing of your own, like they could come back and you'd have to continue to deal with them. But I do feel like this season we're a little bit back to kind of this idea of just piling on somebody and just blaming everything you can possibly think of on them once they go on the block.
Yeah, I mean, which is entertaining at least. I mean, it sucks for that person to sort of become the scapegoat for it, but you would think that on paper with the blockbuster AI arena, okay, you have to be nice to everybody because at least two of these people are going to be coming back rather than one. But like these people don't give a
Yeah.
shit. They're more than happy to be like, all right, well, we'll blame Jimmy for everything, and if he wins the blockbuster, we'll deal with it.
Yeah,
But for right now, he's going to serve as our source of ire.
for sure. Yeah, well, 18 minutes before the veto meeting, Mickey and Morgan pull Jimmy up to the HOH room and tell him that he's going on the block. Mickey explains that they did this so so he wouldn't have time to talk them out of it, but also wouldn't blow everything up out of anger from being totally blindsided by it. Molly, what did you think about this strategy for them? Would it have been better for them to tell him earlier, not tell him at all? Did they do the right thing here? What do you think?
No, I definitely think they should have told him earlier. This just felt like not not considerate in this situation. Obviously, it's a game also, but like it's just in this scenario here where it's like someone you want, at least if he comes off the block, or yeah, if he saves himself and blockbuster, like you want him to still be on your side somewhat, or like at least talk to you about game. Like that would have just ruined it completely. I think like just that move that only 18 minutes before he's going to be nominated, like that's it. Like that just did not sit right with me, and I was mad about that situation.
Yeah, it was this weird thing where it's like, okay, I'm letting you know ahead of time just to emotionally prepare you, but it's done like with no time for him to do anything. And so it feels like even ruder, not to mention, I think that, I believe that the veto ceremony was super early in the day. So like they were all rushed for time,
Yeah.
but like it really doesn't help your message if you're trying to communicate a really difficult point to a major betrayal while you are rushing around the room, barely making eye contact with him. You are not coming across in the best light, to say the least.
Yeah, that was crazy that they made the veto meeting like hours earlier than normal. Like it wasn't just a little bit earlier. Like it was, I want to say 3 to 4 hours earlier than normal. So it was like, okay, they clearly, if anything, and I hate to like say, oh, producers are doing this and that, but like this was clearly they didn't want things to change. It felt like.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is that, again, I had heard people say, okay, well, the DR is going to convince Mickey not to do this. Like, no. The entire narrative, Julie Chen Moonves opened like the week 3 eviction episode, right? Being like, once again, nobody's taking a shot at the major players. They were waiting for
Yeah.
this to happen. And like, they don't necessarily care if it's painted as the stupidest move ever. And it certainly is up there. Like, it gets rid of a big power player and it gets people talking and about the show in a light that doesn't make TMZ headlines. So they are
Yeah.
more than happy to have this happen. If they could have thrown the veto ceremony like Sunday morning if they wanted to, if they really wanted to get this done.
Yeah, it certainly seemed that way. Well, switching gears for a second, we have gotten multiple segments over the last few episodes dedicated to Riley and Catherine's showmans. I'm curious, okay, from both a guy's and girl's perspective, do you think that Catherine is really into him now, or is she feeling like she just has no other choice than to play that part? Molly, why don't you start?
Yeah, I really don't want to root for this at all. And I feel like Catherine does know better deep down, but she's just choosing to remain like with like I don't know, she does seem genuine in some ways, but then other times I'm like, I don't know if this is. But obviously all the things we know about Riley. Also on the side of things where I'm like, just go away from him, go away. But I think it's like half real, half not.
I mean, it's always tough with showmances because part of it is sort of like lack of available options, you
Mhm.
know? And
Yeah.
I think it also I think that she does like him at least a little bit. I mean, we saw now twice at this point the clip of their first kiss, like,
Oh my god.
and I think she actually said at a certain point on the live feeds that like she is like avoidant anxious and he is like attachment anxious, where if she feels not even uncomfortable in a situation but like nervous in a situation, she is flight and fight or flight, and he is like not even necessarily fight, he's more so like cling on for dear life, that he's very much like, as we've seen many times on the feeds, like, why aren't you saying this, like, okay, do you not feel this way about me? I don't want to put words in her mouth and say that she doesn't like him. I do think that at least some of it is reciprocated. I do feel like if she felt in danger or uncomfortable at some point, I think she would at this point be able to make it known to somebody. I've been on record with this before. I find this so fucking boring. It is so dull to me. They have no chemistry. All the power to them if they, end up lasting outside of this. But again, watching them on the live feeds, there are really no personal conversations. I feel like they don't really know much about each other. They're just repeating the same things over and over and over again every single night. They're not giving us anything new. And if you're a fan of showmances, like, I feel like the vast majority of them, there is something there. The
Mhm.
only thing these two have is attraction to each other, and I do not know if there's anything below the surface.
Yeah. No, I agree. I originally thought this felt very Caleb and Amber to me, but now I don't think it's that extreme in terms of like Amber really did not like Caleb at all, and he was very into her. I don't think it's that extreme, but I do think that as soon as they get out of the house, Catherine is gonna be like, "What the hell was I doing?" Like, I mean, we heard from, was it her stepmother? I think that came out, that said like Riley's not gonna be my son-in-law. Like, this isn't gonna happen. This is not the type of guy that she goes for. I just, yeah, I think that she is just. I think it started out with her feeling like, well, I guess I don't have any other options, and then just as time goes on, it's just like you start to see like, well, maybe I like this about him, I like that about him, he's protecting me in the game, like, there's certain things where I think she just kind of has convinced herself that she likes him, but I think as soon as she gets out of there, I don't think this is lasting at all.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I think that again, it could all change. There are certainly couples that are still lasting to this day. I think it's also, this is maybe a case of a lot of fans feeling like they're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, until recently when feelings really seem to be reciprocated of like, why are you showing this? And you're trying to continue to make us believe that like showmances are a thing. They love to beat home, that they have more married couples than The Bachelor. And so like they kind of feel like they have to hit a quota of a showmance every
Mm-hmm.
single season. And like it often happens because it's a bunch of young, horny 20 somethings cooped up inside a house where they got nothing else to do 24 hours a day. But at the same time, I think you really see a lot of like, I don't know, the strings behind the scenes. Not saying that they're manipulating Riley and Catherine to get together, but it's like, yeah, you're really building this up as like some sort of deep romance when it's anything but.
Yeah. I mean, look, I will say there was a period of time I didn't think that Nick and Alandria were had a chance at lasting on from Love Island, and they are still very happily together. So
Yeah.
I will happily eat my words if I'm wrong about this, but we only time will tell. Well, back to the strategy of the show. We didn't get too much post veto campaigning on the show and on the show, but Jimmy did do quite a bit in the days leading up to the vote. He felt like he had 4 blocked in votes from Rachel, Ashley, Will, and Ava. He was hoping to get at least one of Vincent and Lauren, and also tried to work on Keanu by telling him he could be the swing vote. Mike, do you feel like there was anything more Jimmy could have done after going on the block to potentially save himself, or was it just kind of a lost cause?
It doesn't help when you have, someone 2 weeks ago yelling Jimmy is the biggest liar in the house and he's a snake on the way out. Doesn't help when you have someone like Adrian leaving last week and saying Jimmy is the biggest liar in the house. Like, when he was put up, he knew his game was sunk because of his reputation. Because I think even if he's pitching his loyalty to people, he could definitely have been true to his word, but I think just the way that they were perceiving him, it's like, yeah, I'm not going to trust you. You're saying anything you can because you're in a desperate situation. So, honestly, especially the people that he was up against, I mean, Riley is very beloved in that house, and Kelly at this point is sort of just like a non-entity, like social. There's only one competition she can apparently win, and it's these blockbusters or that one random veto that she won. So people don't necessarily feel so threatened by her to make it feel like they need to get her out. And she is like, again, so socially ostracized that it doesn't necessarily feel like she is this big presence. I really do think that, yeah, Mickey put it well, even more so than she thought, that like this was one of the inciting incidents in this season. And I think they started smelling blood in the water, and they're like, okay, this is our opportunity to get out somebody that can win competitions, that can amass people to his side, and can also, if what they're saying is true, betray them at a drop of a hat. Let's get rid of him ASAP. So yeah, I guess the you know what he should have done 2 weeks ago? Shouldn't have nominated Amy and Will. That's the thing he should have done.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the
I
thing, is
know.
like, it's a wild and unfortunate set of circumstances that got rid of Jimmy. Like, he's not completely without blame here, considering the way that he did things and came across during his HOH.
No, that is very true. He did the same thing. He nominated his own ally, and yeah, it's hard to remember that. That feels like a different season ago at this point, but it's very true. No, that he ended up getting, I guess, in a way, what was coming to him after the move that he made as HOH and how he handled that. So, but back to Kelly. I mean, it was her birthday too. So I mean, there's no way she could go home on her birthday week. Come on. But then we get to the baby blockbuster. It is safe crackers. They have to maneuver a ball through a combination maze. Very Survivor challenge of them, it felt like. Into one of three marked number slots. The first person to get all three balls into the slot wins. Riley ends up winning here, leaving Kelly and Jimmy on the block. Molly, were you surprised to see Riley win this when we saw the challenge? Did you feel like any of them had an advantage here that you thought might get the win?
Honestly, I thought this was a very fair
Yeah.
challenge here, so I wasn't too sure who was going to win it. But I mean, with Riley's job as riding bulls, like he has to have good balance, so I guess that helps him in this case, maybe somewhat. But I don't know. I definitely it wasn't even that close either. Like Riley just like came off the bat. Like I think he was just so motivated and wanting to take himself off that it just helped him do it the fastest. But it really could have been anyone's in this challenge.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy went for, I think, a salient strategy, which is to do the furthest one first and then make your way inward. I just think Riley was a little bit better. I think he probably had Jimmy by like 10 seconds. Maybe if Jimmy doesn't drop a ball one time, he has it. It's just the way the cards fell in this particular way. I will say Riley, though, is like low key a pretty steady competitive force. He won that first HOH technically by doing the balancing. He does stuff really well here. I think a lot of dexterity stuff in particular, Riley is good at. So, considering that can sometimes be a focus of a lot of competitions, he might be somebody to look out for, especially when the competition thins out.
Don't say that, Mike.
It might happen. Like, again, people really like him, so
I know. Why is that? I feel like this is like I have never like that I can remember see somebody who is so loved in the house that is so hated by America. I just like I don't like what do they see in him that is so he is such a like teddy bear in that house. He's a social butterfly in there somehow.
I think honestly, and I'm not to besmirch Riley's social game at all. I think a lot of it falls on that cowboy hat. Like, I really do think there's a
Mm.
lot. I've been watching this for 25 years. There is a lot of like natural positive biases that are baked into like a southern accent, and like I'm just a genteel man from Oklahoma or whatever I'm from, and I'm a bull rider. Like, I'm a simple man. Like, people fall for that shit a lot. And so I really do think that, like, despite the fact that he seems to, throw a hissy fit over every minor and major inconvenience. Like I just think the way that he comes across to people is like he's just a sweet, nice guy. Now, granted, they also, a large reason why I think a lot of dislike of in Riley is prevalent is because we have been very privy to a
That's
lot of
true.
his private conversations with Catherine. They have not been. Rachel very actively rooting for this showmance. If I think if she found out that the way this started was not the way that her and Brendan did, I think she'd think differently.
And that's true. They also don't know about the whole baby mama potential on that we heard about preseason or at the very beginning of the season whenever that came out. So yeah, I guess there's a lot of context missing for most of the house guests. That's very true. But we then get to the vote. We have a BB first that we have to talk about here. Ashley originally votes for Jimmy. Then after a lot of delay, she's really not sure who to vote for here. And then goes back in the hallway and starts talking to Will and immediately realizes, shoot, I made the wrong vote here. And she tries to go back in and change her vote, which Julie, no, 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 will not let her do that. Mike, how did you feel watching this live?
Oh, this was incredible. This was amazing TV. And, I think a lot of people say, like, oh, this is the Topaz of Big
Yeah.
Brother. For those who don't know, spoiler alert, Topaz is a contestant on the first season of Big Brother Canada. May it rest in peace. Where, of course, in the final two, you are voting for someone to win, not against somebody. Topaz misunderstood the instructions. She voted for the person she did not want to win because her best friend Gary was up in the final two. She then realized when the key got pulled that she made a mistake, tried to redo it. It was not redone, and it was the deciding vote to deprive her best friend of the prize. That's the next best thing. I think it's a little different in that, like, Ashley just outright changed her mind.
Yeah.
I don't think it was like a misunderstanding of instructions. As we'll find out in a future episode, it was her literally being convinced by Rachel in the moment. Okay, everyone's vote. We have the votes to get rid of Kelly. Vote for Kelly. She went to go vote for Kelly. Stepped out and said, like, "Hey, Will, who are you gonna vote for?" And he said, "Oh, I'm gonna do this," which is odd. Like, I yes, rule of cool is fun in terms of reality TV production, but I very much stand by the decision that Julie made with her no, 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 no. It's like if
Yeah.
you voted in an election and you step out of the voting booth and you're like, hey, who are you going to vote for? And they say, oh, this person, you're like, oh, can I go back and change my vote? No, you're not allowed to do that. You have a live show to carry on, but like, it was incredibly chaotic. That's what these live shows are made for. Luckily the Blockbuster has added a fun new element of like, okay, what to look forward to on the Thursday episodes. The vast majority of the time, these are really straightforward. You know who's going. It's just a drawn out cause. So we always salivate at like these random malfunctions or wild moments that happen. And so far, we've got a fair amount of them, right? Week 2 was, of course, the infamous lemon drop quote. This week was Ashley. I don't know what's going to happen in week 6,
Oh
but
God.
this was all like an instantly iconic moment. Like nobody knew what to do when you have a woman bending over into the camera that they talk to in the diary room, being like, excuse me, if production's there, I'd like to change my vote, please," is just wild. Wild. Leave it to a lawyer to try to buck the system there.
Yeah, that was wild. I mean, it was it's funny how just a couple of weeks before that, I think I was on this podcast saying, let's get rid of the live vote in the early weeks when there's like 13 people voting. Like nothing comes of it. Let's just have them vote during a commercial break or something like that. And then we get this and I'm like, no, we need to keep this forever cuz like it's just those once in a while things that happen like this that you can't replicate on a show like Survivor or anything else that's not live TV.
Yeah, it was the Rachel charm on Ashley that just got her
Rachel's
to change
missed.
it. Yeah. No, it was
uh,
great.
yeah. Well, Jimmy is unfortunately evicted in a 9-2 vote. Rachel and Ashley's vote did count. Are the only two for Kelly. Rachel seemed to know Jimmy was more than likely going home. So, Molly, do you think that she should have just voted with the House, told Ashley to vote with the House, get it to be a unanimous vote, not stick their necks out? Or was it the right move to stay loyal to her friend?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like even just like right before that vote was happening, Rachel was trying to sway people's opinions on who they were voting for. So I think she still deep down was like, maybe there's like a 0.01% chance there. So I think that's why she stuck with voting out Kelly instead of Jimmy, even though she kind of did feel like it was going to be Jimmy going home. So I think she did the right thing there and just making sure that she stayed on the side of being true to her friend.
That's the thing is like, I mean, it's tough because she voted against Amy, so it's a little bit of like, well, why'd you do that for her and not for him? But a lot of people were expecting it, so it didn't necessarily like draw a line in the sand for everybody. Like it was pretty much assumed, so it's not like it's like when Dan is the only vote to keep
For
Brian in the
Brian.
house
Yeah.
in Big Brother 10. Like it didn't necessarily say, okay, now it's you, Rachel, against everybody else. Like she kind of assumed had certain people won that she was going to be next anyway. So what is it doing? Who is
Yeah.
it worsening her reputation with?
Right. And I think in a case like that, like I think the Dan and Brian thing's the classic example where it's like you show loyalty, like you show you're a loyal
Mm.
player, that you're willing to stick your neck out for your friends. And I think that actually like says something about Rachel if you're going to potentially try to bring her in as an ally, where it's like Rachel's loyal. She voted for Jimmy when she knew he was going home. Like I think that is a testament to your character and as somebody that you would want to work with. So I think it was the right move too. Well, then we get another episode of BB Unlocked on Friday. Mike, what are your thoughts on BB Unlocked so far as a whole? Did you think that episode 2 was an improvement over the first one?
Yeah, so what I will say is like, listen, I think expectations were set very low for Big Brother Unlocked, and that's no offense to the host. I think it's this idea that just we've been used to sort of like these recappy episodes, and they have been largely duds. So I think we were expecting more of that, and that's not necessarily the case. I feel a couple ways about the fact that I like that we get exclusive clips. Like it feels like then the show is worth it. I don't know if I like that it comes at the cost of like blacking out feeds or not showing specific parts of the
Do
house.
you
Because
think it is like actually causing the feeds to get blacked out?
I mean, I think not even blacked out as much as it's like we'll have all four cameras on one room because these people are doing something else, and so we don't want to necessarily concentrate on them. So I don't know if it's even responsible for the blackouts as much as it is maybe a singular focus on the feeds. I think the segments are fun. I think that Derek and Taylor work really well against each other. I would say, the phrase that is talked about in the fantasy sports world is like nobody cares if you talk about your fantasy team to other people. I kind of feel that way about the whole like fantasy team thing with Chelsea. Like, I don't know why we had to bring her back out every week to be like, all right, here are the people that are gone. Like, I really don't think anyone is reasonably keeping track or caring about any of that. What I will say was really interesting is that I don't know, maybe I'm misremembering the Bobby Moynihan episode, but the Jerry O'Connell episode, it felt like he was leading some discussion, which
Yeah.
really surprised me because I guess my impression was that it was Derek and Taylor who would always be leading the conversation, but like Jerry O'Connell was setting up clips. That really surprised me.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just because he has like talk show experience being on the
Hmm.
talk. He's hosted Big Brother an episode. Like, I guess maybe they felt more comfortable giving him that responsibility of leading it more than maybe they felt with Bobby Moynihan. But yeah, no, I like it. I'm weird that I love like after shows and things like that. I loved house calls back in the day. I loved like, all these different little versions of it that they've had, like, Love Island After Sun. I love watching every year. So yeah, I like it, but if it comes at the cost of like blacking out the feeds or not showing certain things just so that they have them for that, not worth it at all for that. Then let's get into the Sunday night episode. Rachel is upset and emotional after Jimmy's eviction, of course, but she has a heart to heart with Keanu, who comes in to console her. Now, Molly, their relationship, Rachel and Keanu's, is very interesting to me. What do you make of it? Where are they in their relationship right now?
I never know. I feel like it's always going up and down. And in general, I do think that Keanu wants to be on Rachel's good side, but then Rachel's just like, nope, you're not going to be there fully. But maybe I'll be a little bit nice to you some days. But then other days, I'm like, I read right through it. So I don't know. It just feels like, I mean, Rachel's social game is just great. So she doesn't want to be like totally rude to anyone, I guess. But like in general, like I think Keanu just when he feels on the bottom or not having anyone there. Like he just wants to talk game with anyone who wants to talk with him, and talking to Rachel just seems to be comforting for him. So that's what my read is.
Yeah, I feel like Rachel and Keanu, I think it's one of those things where it's like you have this like knockout drag out fight in the beginning of
Hmm.
the season, and then it's almost like it can only go up from there. And so it's over time you just kind of start to crack, take a little bit of chip away at each other, and it's like I want to figure you out type of thing. It's like you're a mystery to me, and I want to crack this case. And so I feel like it's almost that where it's like they want to become friends because they don't quite understand each other.
It's also a bit of like the devil you know is better than the devil you don't, right? Where
Yeah.
like Rachel was very freshly betrayed by the people that she thought she was working with very closely in Mickey and Morgan, whereas like Keanu, she knew where he sort of stood since the very beginning. And so it's like, all right, like I both sort of called out the fact that like this is why I mean she does say quite literally, right? Like the irony is not lost on me that you're the one that is hugging me. Also, though, at the same time, he has a pretty unique experience in this house in that like he has felt incredibly isolated. Part of it was his own doing, but like the first month in the house he essentially had been public enemy number one. So I think if there's anyone to sort of comfort Rachel in this time where she feels so alone, it would be one of two people, Keanu being one of them.
Hmm. Yeah. Another part of that talk that I thought was so funny was Ashley coming in and just like lying about her vote to both of them. Like, how do you think you're fooling Rachel with this vote? It was funny to me. But, yeah, that was funny. But then we get to the HOH competition, and it's the knockout competition, classic. We saw lots of questionable strategies though when it came to winners selecting the next people to go to the next round. And we've seen this, I feel like, every season. Somebody doesn't get it, somebody doesn't understand what to do with it. But Mike, what do you think is the best strategy for somebody who doesn't want to necessarily like totally expose their alliances? Like if it's the case where some seasons we get where it's very clear two sides, there's no secrets as to who's working with who, but like this season does feel a little bit more like not so clear. So what do you think the best strategy is for somebody like
Don't ask for volunteers. Like
that?
I want to know actually in real time how long it was the pause after Riley asked that question before
Yeah.
Zach and Kelly were finally like, okay, me. I mean, the answer in that perspective is if you're in Riley's shoes, you pick Rachel and Ashley. You know, there was a reason why Mickey's nominations were very easy starting off. Is like, hey, there were four people who did not vote in the majority last week. Let's put them up because, like, yeah, one of them might win power, but like, it's an easy rationale of, hey, you were on the outside, so we're just going to kind of kick you down a bit further. That feels the easiest form of logic to me, because I think otherwise everyone can rationalize something about something else. And I think, you know, especially when you have Zach idiotically picking Morgan, then you're looking at him sideways being like, okay, either you didn't understand the game or I don't have you like I think I have
Yeah.
you.
Right. That's so funny to me that it's such a classic competition. Like it's a competition you should expect going on Big Brother that you are going to get to. So it's one that you would think that you would like, even if you're somebody who just watched highlights of Big Brother, like you would see that competition. You would. It's so crazy to me how people don't do their homework before going on the show. But that's a whole different
Well,
conversation.
ChatGPT is available, Michael. You got
Yeah.
to make
Yeah.
use of it.
Yeah, the volunteering ask was crazy. I was like, well, you're not going to get an answer that you want here.
I
But you
don't know.
did. You did.
To be yeah, that's to be fair, Molly.
That's
You have
true.
someone in the game who volunteered for the block multiple times, and she volunteered for
Well,
Riley too. Like
that's true.
Kelly,
We
maybe
have
Kelly just
one
doesn't
with
like.
the one volunteer.
Yeah, Kelly just doesn't like awkward silence. Maybe she's like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna make this easier for everybody. I volunteer, even if it comes to my at the to my detriment.
She's an
Yeah.
instigator, Mike. What can she say?
Exactly. More like a placater in that regard.
Yeah, true. Well, Ava ends up winning this HOH and immediately tells the house that she's not going to have one-on-ones, that she's tired of them, doesn't want to do them. Molly, what do you think of the strategy?
Honestly, I support it. I felt like at this point, like she knows who she wants to target and overall, like who she wants to be aligned with in the game. So she doesn't feel the need to waste her time and hearing what people have to say and trying to sway her opinion on it. So I think that was a good move on her part.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, it's good to have that authenticity to be like, yep, you know me, I'm not going to make this happen. Doesn't necessarily help setting up your game for future weeks, which I
Yeah.
think ideally, especially as an early HOH, you should do. Now, granted, we have yet to see an HOH do that this season, but in a perfect world, that's what you're supposed to do is like entertain conversations because it also means that, like, she's gonna walk up to Zach and be like, "Nope, no, don't worry, honey, you're safe. I'm still remembering that thing from week one." And then obviously change her mind.
That's true.
It would help a little bit, especially if Zach stays this week. That like, maybe your mind could be changed in a conversation with him, in which you'd be able to talk about that instead of just being like,
Mhm.
"Hey, Zach, sorry, when you weren't allowed to talk to me, my mind changed. I didn't bring it up to you afterwards."
Yeah, I think even just letting people feel like you heard them. Like, I think even if you're not planning on changing your mind, you think you have your mind set. Like, I just think like people want to feel heard and people want to feel like in future weeks, like if you are on the other side of that, I think she would want to have that opportunity to be heard. And so it's an easy thing for somebody like Zach to win HOH next week and say, well, you didn't let me, explain myself, so I'm not going to let you explain yourself either. Like, no shot, you're going on the block. So, yeah, I think it's one of those just formalities that you kind of just need to go through the motions, even if you don't really feel it. But Ava tells Mickey then that she is planning to nominate Keanu, Vince, and Ashley. Mickey and Will try to talk her out of doing Ashley. Now, Mike, we saw both Ava and Mickey really turn against Ashley last week, but at least to me, it wasn't clear until watching this that she was really so close to going up. By the time Feeds came back last week, the other night, like she was already set on doing Zach instead. So, what were your thoughts on seeing that?
Yeah, that was a bit of a surprise. I mean, I guess it makes sense given Ava's specific position, right? Where again, she feels like she had to repay Zach. I think for a lot of us, it felt natural to put him up because it's like, okay, these past few days, everyone's been talking up Vince, Zach, and Morgan as a trio, and she doesn't want to put up Morgan, at least at that point. So it's like, okay, then throw Zach up. So again, I'm trying to figure out whether this is like a true narrative or not. I
Mm,
have to imagine it is because, like, I mean, it's just, it would be weird to really put words in Ava's mouth and be like, but you didn't want to target Zach, right? Like, and then she would just make that up whole cloth. I mean, it's a little interesting to me that Mickey in particular, like Will makes sense that he wouldn't want Ashley to go. Mickey is so hot and cold on Ashley. It feels like every other day she's complaining about
yeah.
her that it is a little surprising that she pushed that hard to keep Ashley in the game. But hey, ends up with a really interesting choice here and putting up somebody who has not, people thought for a while, including people in the house, that like he would just not need to use that 10K veto, just ride it out until the end game and maybe never be nominated. Like that's clearly not the case here. I think she really wanted to have people taste the block who hadn't beforehand, and she was fairly successful. 2 out of 3 in that venture.
Yeah, it feels very Jessica Milagros. I know I've heard that, I've seen that comparison going back and forth, but like it just does. It's like that person you would never expect to like make a big, huge move like this is putting up three big guys that hadn't, well, two of them hadn't seen the block yet. And yeah, it's I really was afraid for this season on Thursday after Jimmy went home, and I was like, oh God, if we get a Riley HOH, if we get, a bunch of other people, it would have just turned into a steamroll. And so I was really happy to see Ava win this and then to hear her plans once she decided against Ashley. I was like, okay, we're okay for now. But we saw Vince get very emotional in conversations with Rachel and Will in an effort to potentially save himself and get to a good place with Ava's allies. But neither of them were buying it. Now, Molly, do you think that there was a different approach that he could have gone through to potentially have better success here, or was it just too little too late no matter what he said?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, with Vince's emotions, I feel like they are somewhat real sometimes, and then other times I'm like, okay, this seems a little bit dramatic here, especially in the situation where like he's not close to them, like it's not gonna really go over well in the situation. I feel like it was just a little bit too late for him to try and save himself here, and just overall, like it wasn't really gonna change anyone's mind on what was gonna happen for putting
Yeah,
him
I
up.
mean, this is almost like a part and parcel with the Jimmy of it all, of like the way Vince was being perceived, particularly from those two, is that he's playing all sides and like he carries favor with everybody. And so like when he gets dramatic like this, it's tough in the moment probably to be like, I don't think you're actually having an emotional breakdown, but like it was coming at them with such a 10 that it's like, where did this come from? I also think that Vince is, still trying to kind of weasel his way out of like the suspicion of playing the middle by being like, I just connect with everybody. Isn't that what we're doing in this house? It's like, again, Rachel tells him, I'm a straight shooter. Like, if you want to, again, say what you want to about Keanu, but like him and Rachel at least have a mutual understanding of each other because like they are so upfront with one another, at least you might think initially. So like Vince doesn't play that way, though. He wants to curry favor to everybody, and as a result, he kind of curries favor to no one as a result.
Yeah, yeah, a friend to everyone is a friend to no one, and I think that's very true in the Big Brother house, especially. But Ava ends up, to no surprise, nominating Keanu, Vince, and Zach. So let's get into some feed spoilers really quick here because we got a big day yesterday and today so far. So before the veto, Ava had already been discussing the fact that Morgan would most likely be her potential renom option. Catherine ends up winning the Yankee swap veto, where we've got a bunch of punishments and rewards here, but the two that are the biggest that we've seen so far are Vince getting an egg costume and Keanu getting a butler costume, both of which are hilarious, I think, and great. They've done their big one this season with those costumes. But there was some talk yesterday about potentially using the veto to get Morgan on the block, but it ended up fizzling out. Zach also has a 10K veto power that I think everyone kind of assumed was going to get used this week, but lo and behold, seems like it hasn't been. So, I mean, I don't know, Mike. You can say that I am crazy here. Is there a possibility that he hasn't had to use it yet? That it's not during the ceremony?
There's been a lot of speculation about this that people thought like, oh, when he said it after the veto ceremony, that means that, he gets to use it anytime between now. I don't think that's the case because from a TV perspective, they usually want to package all the veto related stuff into the Wednesday night episode, especially with it being 90 minutes. We see that like Kelly stood up at the veto ceremony, interrupted it to be like, and I'm also using my power. I have to imagine they're doing the same thing with Zach here. It just wouldn't make sense for me that like he would play it tomorrow and now they
Yeah.
do another veto meeting. I think they want to make it nice and tidy so that they can turn around the edit for the Wednesday episode. Unless they want to do a big cliffhanger into like, oh my God, what's going to happen? But they have so much shit they need to do on Thursday that makes no sense to me.
Yeah. But I mean, it's even crazier to me the fact that he seemingly didn't use it. So he is left on the block with Keanu and Vince. I mean, Mike, Molly and I are going to talk about this more when it actually gets on the episode next week. So I really want to focus on getting your reaction here. What are your thoughts on him not using it?
Oh God. I mean, it's not as bad as the Marcellus veto, but it's close. Because
Yeah,
when you think about the time that like the veto was used on other people by someone on the block, there were extenuating circumstances. You have
sure.
Dick, you have Brendan; these were loved ones. Matt Klein's was this weird situation with like the third nominee, where if he used it on
I
himself,
forgot
then
about
he
that. Oh my
and they
God.
had to backdoor Cody, so he had to use it on somebody else, or else he would just get removed off the block, and there would be no renominee. So and Tucker obviously thought like, okay, I want to make a big move and I want, and I know I can win the AI arena. Zach, it just seems more like abject confidence. It's very much like not playing your idol on Survivor of I don't need it now, but I can need it down the line. And it just feels at this point now, it could be, for all we know, we'll be eating crow in a few days from now when he wins the blockbuster and he still has this in his pocket. It feels too cute though at the moment. Like you can never be too sure in this house, especially this house where things can seemingly change on a dime. I would not necessarily want to bank on that point, especially when you were so shocked to go up as a nominee to be like, yeah, but I think I have the votes to stay. It feels way too risky. I don't know. I maybe he also fears a little bit of the blowback of if I use this and everyone finds out that I had a power and didn't tell my
Yeah.
allies about it, they'll feel a certain way. But like then his plan would I guess have been to never use it. At which point, like, then what if you get nominated the next week? You're still not going to use it, my dude? It's maybe he'll explain his logic a bit more in the Wednesday episode, but this makes absolutely no sense to me in the moment.
Yeah, and it's so crazy to me because I feel like last night I really thought that he was just kind of trying to feel people out to see where they were going so that he would get these answers before coming out with his power and using it. And it felt like I think it was Morgan that told him yesterday like this is going to be a really close vote. Like, but she was like I think it's a split house but a split vote, but I think you know that type of thing. And I thought, well, he doesn't know that. And then I thought, oh, hearing that is gonna for sure get him to use this, and it didn't happen. So yeah, I think I wonder how much of it is him just not wanting to give Ava the satisfaction of giving her $10,000. I don't know. He's really anti-floaters. I think Ava is somebody who he really felt like fit that bill and didn't necessarily respect her game. So I don't know how much of it is just that level of ego. I don't know. It's crazy to me. But yeah, who do you right now see as the most likely to go home?
This one is honestly maybe the toughest one out of all 5 weeks so far. Now, granted, now that the noms are finalized, quote unquote, we could see some gelling towards certain things. Like, my hunch would be Keanu, but I feel like, especially with Zach now still on the block, like many people thought for a while it was going to be a Morgan renomination no matter what. We were eagerly anticipating the reaction, especially considering everything that went down with Rachel yesterday. It feels like, you have that contingency of like a Rachel, a Will, and Ashley, going for Vince or Zach no matter what. That then you kind of only need one or two more, right? Because we have, I think it's 13 people that are left, and so minus the 4 it'd be 9, so all you need is 5 votes. So like, if it's the wrong person that they can bring over, Vince pissed off Kelly too much and she hops over, or if Riley and Catherine are still really angry at Zach for what happened with the Adrian vote and they flip over, they're not locked in safe, which again makes it more maddening as to why Zach did not use this get out of jail free card. So, as long story short, I think it is very wide open at
Yeah.
this moment. We still have a couple days for Keanu to step in it and get another argument with somebody. We see he got into an argument with Mickey, though I think she would have voted him out regardless. There's still an opportunity for people to talk about, again, how threatening Zach and Vince are. So plenty of things can still change, but a lot is up in the air right now.
Yeah. It's going to be a fun few days leading up to Thursday here, I think. I think it's going to switch back and forth a lot. And especially with these three nominees, yeah, it feels very, very up in the air. But Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. This was so much fun. Anything to plug? Where can our listeners find you?
At a Mike Bloom type on social media is where I plug my usual batch of lovely shit. But yeah, every week I'm doing Exit Press, talking with these recently booted house guests over on parade.com. Got to talk with Jimmy this week. A lot of fun there. I'll be back this Friday talking with either Zach, Vince, or Keanu as well. You mentioned before the Reality Flash, which is our sort of like breaking news podcast on RHAP, where anytime there's sort of big news in the wide world of reality TV, I am in your eyes and ears talking to you about what you need to know. So go to therealityflash.com. And last thing is, we've been talking a lot of Survivor. Australian Survivor, AU versus the World, is coming out this Sunday. And so I'll be joining, the usual gaggle of people alongside Shane and Gus to recap. Very excited. That's going to be a very odd yet hopefully exciting thing to tide us over until, Survivor 49 comes out. Thank you so
I,
much for having me. Happy to be the M to your M&M.
yes.
Yes, the true
I-
M&Ms that we want to support.
Of course. Well, thank you so much for listening. Be sure to follow us at Let's Chat Reality on all social media and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And we will be back next week to, of course, talk more Big Brother. And we can't wait for it. So thank you so much for listening. We will catch you all next week. Bye, everyone.